I know we all recognize that our life is not just one straight line, and that we don't remain on just one level. The Lord doesn't permit that, but some days are great, some days are not so great. But He provides for us. When we're in those low places, we'll find Him there. And there's a ministry and a purpose in going through low places. And then there's times of abundance. And many times those seasons we go through that where there seems to be abundant blessings, it's really time to take note, because we're going to need to reflect back on those seasons and those days and learn lessons from it and embrace what we saw that was above, what was beyond, what was the extra, and understand the nature of God is that He will always provide more than enough. In Matthew 14, He had told the disciples, when it was evening, they said, we need to send the multitudes away because they need to go buy themselves food. And He said, they don't need to go away. You need to give them something to eat. And the disciples clearly didn't have anything. And they said, we have here, 5 loaves and 2 fish. He said, well, bring them to me. And He commanded all the multitude to sit down in the grass. And He took the 5 loaves and looking up to heaven, He blessed and broke it and gave it to His disciples. He blessed it and He broke it. He gave it to His disciples and they gave to the multitudes. And it says they were all filled, and they took up 12 baskets full of fragments that remained. And that was very important. And the Lord, of course, was trying to teach them something here. You were going to send them away with nothing and let them go get what they needed. But I want to show you what I can do with a multitude. I'm unlimited in what I do, and I can give more than enough. And in chapter 15, He took the 7 loaves and the fish and gave thanks and broke and gave to His disciples, and they gave to the multitude. And there was that miracle repeated. And so they all ate and were fed, and they took up 7 large baskets of the fragments that remained. And so in both cases, it was important enough to mention the amount of extra that was collected. Jesus fed thousands, but He provided enough for somebody to take home a basket with some extra. And some of it might feed a family that wasn't there. Some would provide for maybe a family that was unemployed. But all of it would show the multitude that God provides us more than we could ever need. And we get to places where we wonder how we're going to make it. And it may not be a matter of finances. It may be emotional strength. It's not always the physical. Sometimes it's of the mental or the spiritual. And we get to places where we're stretched out and we wonder. And this miracle isn't at all speaking of just having enough money or enough things to get by, but it's that God will bless us abundantly. And that's just a reminder. These are things that we know this, but we need to be reminded that He is a God of abundant blessings. He doesn't stop at just the full mark, but He gives more than enough to take home. Because His blessings, as an example, the blessings that we had at church yesterday, a mighty move of God and a missionary service that was just phenomenal. But it wasn't just for that service that we could say, hey, that was good church. But I'll tell you, I brought something home with me today, and I know many of you did. We are not supposed to just let it be what we receive there, but God gives us something for the journey. He gives us something for the next day. And in Matthew 16, in verse 5, when the disciples went to the other side, they had forgotten to take bread. He said, take heed and beware the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And they reasoned among themselves and thinking, is it because we have taken no bread? And that was just them talking out of earshot. But Jesus, being aware, said, oh, you of little faith, why do you reason among yourselves because you brought no bread? Do you not yet understand or remember the 5 loaves and the 5,000 and how many baskets you took up? Nor the 7 loaves and the 4,000 and how many large baskets you took up? And He's making them remember something here. He said, you must remember that I will give you enough and more. There are always going to be leftovers. There's going to be more than you need. And more than enough is what he gives us. And he was talking about the doctrine of the Pharisees that dealt with outward appearance. The yeast, in the bread puffs it up with air, making it more appealing. And here they were in a boat with the one that not only fed thousands, but drew attention to the fact. He said, I want you to know that I give you more than you need. And whenever I can think about that, and then I look at the battles we fight, the low points that we go through, and I remember that, Lord, you always provide on one day what I'm going to need for the next day. And we have that blessing of a basket with extra. He always is going to give us extra. And the point of leftovers is that he's not stingy with his blessings, but he gives us something for a day we haven't seen yet. He gives you something for a problem you haven't faced yet. And so as we go along with our blessing from Sunday, as we go forward and we think about how great it felt and how wonderful his presence was, we must realize too that we have within our nature this ministry of a basket of memories of that feeling of what it did to us. It's not about just the thoughts and the memory of what it felt, but God blesses us internally, spiritually, and he gives us a standing. He raises us to a level. He puts us at a place in his kingdom so that when the trouble comes, it's not going to knock you down. It's not going to take you to the bottom, but you're going to be able to stand because there were leftovers. And in that powerful, powerful service we had yesterday, there was in that the ministry of providing you more than you need, giving you something for today, for tomorrow, for the next day. And the point of it is he is not slack concerning his blessings, concerning his promises, but is faithful. He is faithful. He knows that we're going to go through something. He knows that today may be a great day, but tomorrow might have a challenge. He knows those things, and he gives us what we need earlier so that we can make it. And we haven't even been where we're going to be when we're going to need what he's already given us. Life can, it can be so wonderful when we realize the balance between receiving blessings and giving back praise and service to God. Matthew 11:28, New Living Translation. Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest." If you're weary and you carry heavy burdens, I'm the source. Come to me. I'm your source. He said, "Take my yoke on you. Let me teach you because I'm humble and gentle at heart, and you'll find rest for your souls." Sometimes that is the most precious commodity that we could ever hope for, is to find rest for our souls in a busy world that's moving here and there, and government that's been changed, and we're wondering which way are we going to go. It's good to hit the pause button and just find rest for your souls, because somewhere he's already given you that, but you just have to open that container, that part in your spirit, and say, I'm going to reminisce and I'm going to receive what God has put in there for me. He said, my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light. And above and beyond that, he's already provided what we need. I will always be indebted to him. To complement his nature of abundant blessing, we see here that his equally abundant mercy and kindness is available to us. He gives way more than we ask for and demands little, really, compared to his abundant provisions. All he asks for is just be sure you're thankful. Be thankful. Matthew 19:13 says, when there were brought unto him little children, that he should put his hands on them and pray. The disciples rebuked them. And it was a great learning point for the disciples. Jesus said, suffer the little children and forbid them not to come unto me, for of such is the kingdom of heaven. He said, well, you need to realize not only do they need to be here, but you need to learn from them. Understand the innocence and their complete faith of asking. They're coming without any strings attached. They don't have any past that's going to infect or or dilute their faith. They come with perfect faith. He said, that's how you need to be. They're a perfect reflection of the kingdom. They're needy, but they're very prone to ask for something when they need it. And they'll ask for something when they don't need it. When they have it already, they'll ask for something because they just want to engage you in the relationship or in the process. You know, many times what children are looking for is, come be with me. Just come be with me. I want to do something. It doesn't matter. They just want you to do something with them. It doesn't have to be a new toy. It just has to be time spent. And he said, learn from them and you'll know more about me. Be like these children. They're hungry just to be with you. They crave adult participation. He said, just look at how they are. And some might see children as fragments, but Jesus sees them as a perfect example of how we should act toward him. You know, they ask when it's, you know, even a time that's not opportunistic, not the perfect time. Their timing's not always right because they don't look at time of day, where we are. You can be driving a car and they can ask you to do something for them, and you clearly aren't able because they don't think about that. He said, be like children. Don't let the circumstances around you rob you of a blessing, but be like children, because he provides more than we need, and he has enough for us. Israel left the manna behind, and that was to tell them something. I'm going to give you bread every day, and you're going to leave some out there because it's always going to be more than you're going to need. So get enough, because tomorrow's going to be another day. And you have enough of the Holy Ghost when he fills you to cover every loss, to keep enough of your nature covered while his nature is lifted up, his spirit within you. He said to Mary, go tell the disciples and Peter. He added that part in there because it was a little leftovers. It was a little extra because, Peter's feeling pretty bad about his denial 3 times. So be sure, single him out. Be sure Peter knows. He doesn't have to give us more, but he does. And they ate and they were full. Luke 6:35, he said, love your enemies and do good and lend, hoping for nothing in return. And your reward will be great, and you'll be sons of the Most High. For he is kind to the unthankful and the evil. Therefore, be merciful, just as your Father also is merciful. He's kind to the unthankful and to the evil. He said, judge not, and you won't be judged. Condemn not, and you shall not be condemned. Forgive, and you'll be forgiven. Give, and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, will be put into your bosom. For with the same measure you use, that's the measure that's going to be measured back to you. So I must attempt to be abundant in my service to God in every way. All above is giving. Everything above and beyond, that's the giving. Love, do good, lend, don't judge, be merciful, etc. All is giving of ourselves. Give and you're going to receive in the same manner. Let fragments remain. When you give again. Look for ways to demonstrate the nature of God. We can't take it with us, but it can hinder us from going. But we got to have a spirit of abundance. Lord, you've been abundant with me. Help me, God, that I can be abundant, because there's always going to be leftovers with God.